A cyber attack stunts state services and prompts federal intervention. What's next in Nevada's response and recovery process? Plus, what role Saudi Arabia and the UFC are playing in the first ever boxing match at Allegiant Stadium. That's this week on Nevada Week.
Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstedt.
Welcome to Nevada Week. I'm Amber Renee Dixon. The Las Vegas-based UFC, the most powerful promotion in professional mixed martial arts, is getting into boxing and hopes a bill in Congress can help. That story is ahead, but we begin with continued fallout from a cybersecurity attack on the state of Nevada. The state says it identified the attack on Sunday, August 24th. Since then, Nevadans have lacked access to numerous state services. Tracking the status of their restoration is just one of several angles that our panelists are pursuing, and here to share the developments they're following are Jessica Hill, politics reporter for the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and Oona Milliken, Southern Nevada government accountability reporter for the Nevada Independent. Thank you both for joining Nevada Week. Let's start with critical services that were down and are now back up. What have you been following, Jessica?
Sure. So the DMV has had some severe, closures for the last week or so. The offices have been closed, the online services have been down, but slowly those have been restored. Just yesterday on Tuesday, in-person offices reopened for vehicle permits, vehicle licenses, that kind of thing. However, there's still a lot of impact to services. We're not seeing driver's license renewals or ID renewals at this point.
Okay. How big of a deal is this, do you think?
Well, the governor called it one of the biggest challenges of his time in office. I mean, it's a really big deal. This has happened to other cities and municipalities around the country, but as far as I know, this is the only statewide attack of this nature that this country's seen in a while.
Is it fair to expect states and local governments to be prepared for this kind of attack? Are those systems in place, Jessica?
Well, the governor has said that he thinks the state has been prepared for this. They've seen, casinos hit with similar cyber attacks in the past, and it's just something that a lot of municipalities expect. Cybersecurity experts that I've talked to said that sometimes these things happen in rounds where hackers will go after one industry at a time until they build up their systems. And right now it seems like municipalities are under attack. And there have been some things that the government in Nevada has been trying to push forward. In the last session, there was a bill that helped kind of cohesive and unite the cybersecurity departments in the state to better respond to attacks like this. So cybersecurity experts in Nevada have said that has helped them be more prepared.
Okay, so even though that was established after this last session, they were already prepared to move forward. You brought up the casinos, though, and I believe the difference is that they paid the hackers, correct? In order to what? And is the state going to do the same thing, pay whoever is behind this?
The state hasn't said if they're going to pay yet or not. Not all the casinos paid, but essentially, it's to kind of get your systems back and running to, stop the encryption and, get your systems back up.
And casinos have the money to do that, but do local government entities, does the state government?
I don't think so. I mean, as you know, Nevada has had some issues with its budget, and it has a very limited budget in the first place. It doesn't have room to, give a hacker a bunch of money anyway. But there's a common practice of not paying the ransom. A lot of governments don't negotiate with terrorists, and that is something that they just haven't been doing. However, we don't know for sure what the situation is. The state has not really made that clear.
What do each of you think is the biggest question that has yet to be answered? I'll start with you.
I think who's responsible is kind of a big one. Obviously, I don't think that the state is at liberty to say. It could really impede an investigation if they reveal too much about who the person is, not the person, but who the entity is and what they're demanding and what's been taken. So I think until they're further along in their investigation, that's when we'll see more info on that.
Same for you?
Yeah, who did it? I also want to know how it happened. Did an employee accidentally click on a phishing email? Did they somehow just get into the systems through a hard drive from like a public space. I want to know how it happened for sure.
The governor has said there's been too much focus on who is behind this. Do you agree or disagree?
I think it's like the natural inclination to want to know. You
Right.
know, if it's a national, like an international group, if it's a foreign adversary, I think it's important that we know who that is.
Yeah, and if it's part of another operation, for example. The timeline, how long this is taking to work through. Is it long? Is it normal? What kind of explanations have you been given?
From what I understand, this kind of thing can take months. This is not a quick, easy process. And yeah, I don't think it's already some systems are back up, but I think it could be a while before everything is in full recovery.
What's the main message that people should take home after watching this, especially if they are employed by the state or rely on state services?
I think one message is just to make sure that your information is protected in the best ways that you can. Make sure that your passwords are, differentiating between different services. Check your bank accounts for any like large purchases, or your credit card score. If it like goes up and down drastically, then there might be a problem. Well, mostly just going up. That could be a problem. So I think those are big things. But for state employees, the state has assured them that pay is continuing. They've been able to like manually process that. So I don't think that's something that state employees need to be worried about.
And as a government accountability reporter, what stands out to you from what role the state has played in this, the information that they've been releasing?
I think obviously this has been covered in the media. Governor Lombardo did not show up to the first press conference that the governor's office kind of hosted on this topic. He did show up to the second one. I think continued presence from the governor and continued communication with the state is really important, because I think a lot of residents are wondering what's going on and if they've been affected. So. If they continue to communicate with us and with the public, I think that's, a good thing. But I'm sure we'll find out more on what's happened.
How was that perceived, his absence at the first press conference?
It was definitely noticed by a lot of people. I've gotten emails from readers being like, why wasn't the governor here for this? It's like the biggest event. And as Oona said, the governor said, yes, this is like the biggest crisis that he's dealt with since he's become governor. So it was surprising to a lot of people that he wasn't there. And then I think he noticed that and made it a big focal point of the most recent press conference last week on Thursday.
All right. Thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you so
Nevada
much.
Week.
Thank you.
We move now to sports. On Saturday, September 13th, Allegiant Stadium will host its first boxing match. The main event pits world super middleweight champion Saul Canelo Alvarez against undefeated world welterweight champion Terrence "Bud" Crawford. It's a fight that has boxing fans salivating, yet it's being promoted in part by UFC president and CEO Dana White. Under the company TKO Group Holdings, the premier mixed martial arts organization is entering boxing alongside Saudi Arabia and the chairman of its General Entertainment Authority, His Excellency Turki Al-Sheikh. So what does this mean for boxing's future? For that, we bring in Jacob "Stitch" Duran, an esteemed cutman in both boxing and mixed martial arts, as well as Amer Abdallah, a boxing advisor and former world champion kickboxer. Gentlemen, thank you for joining Nevada
Thank you for having
Week.
us, Amer. Thank you.
Remind me, when did people start talking about making this fight? Because these are two great boxers, future Hall of Famers, but in two very different weight classes.
Initially, the conversations were with Terrence Crawford coming over to Saudi, and Saudi, welcomed him, embraced him, and really welcomed him, and they were looking for a big fight for him. And the word on the street is Bill Haney actually is the one that put it in Bud's ear and said, listen, if you want a big fight, go right to Canelo.
Bill Haney is the father of Devin Haney,
Correct.
another professional boxer. I did not think this would ever be a fight that could be made. Money being a big part of it, and then why would Terrence Crawford want to go up, two, or is it 3 weight classes?
2 weight classes.
2 weight classes.
3 weight classes.
3, right. My first thought is, could this have happened without Saudi Arabia's involvement?
Well, yes, it could. Money talks, right? And so in that situation, yeah, I could see that happening.
What about you?
Absolutely not.
It wouldn't have.
It would have taken way too much for Canelo to come to the table And although this is a fight against, a super welterweight, and he's, sitting at super middleweight, it's still risky. Bud's a nasty guy.
Oh, yeah.
But then you got the Jake Paul scenario, where he is putting money into these fighters. So could he have made that?
But the risk is, there's a difference between, I believe, in boxing, risk and risky, and it's a risk putting Canelo with Jake Paul, but you know what those pay-per-view numbers are looking at.
Oh.
Terence Crawford, historically, and I love Bud, and I think he's probably pound for pound top 2, 3 in the world. Historically, and you can talk to Top Rank because they said it publicly, has not been able to sell the kind of tickets and numbers outside of Omaha.
He's a quiet guy.
He's a quiet guy. He's a nasty guy.
Highly skilled. Oh, I know.
Extremely. So that one's risky to put him with Canelo Alvarez. Canelo's the cash cow. So I think you'd need to have guarantees like Saudi brought to the table in order for that fight to happen.
But then we're talking, so we are talking about money.
100%.
How much is Canelo going to get paid?
I heard 150 million.
That's what's being reported.
I heard 50 million for Crawford.
And I heard 10 million for Crawford.
No,
said that.
I mean,
in
again,
a
we don't know the
podcast.
numbers, and those are between the teams. I think it's all hearsay. Whether or not the State Athletic Commission, discloses those numbers afterwards will be a different story.
Well, they
and then
don't
always
anymore.
be back end money also.
The Nevada Athletic Commission no longer discloses fighter purses.
Then there you go. Yeah, I don't think Bud goes near the ring for 10 million.
No,
Yeah.
I agree.
I thought that was strange, but he was quoted in a podcast saying that. What has Saudi Arabia's impact on boxing bid?
Oh, it's been phenomenal. It's unbelievable. I mean, it started in 2019 when Anthony Joshua fought Ruiz for the second time, and then it was Usyk Joshua 2, and then we did Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. That we did, the masses, because we wanted to see, they wanted a little bit more of a younger crowd demographic in it. The co-main was Badu Jack Ilunga Makabu for the WBC cruiserweight title, and then the General Entertainment Authority, Turki Al Sheikh, and SIDA came in and they said, we'd like to take this to the next level, and they dumped a ton of money. They started with Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou.
Which is bringing MMA and boxing together.
Right.
But
Yeah.
it was a boxing match.
It was a boxing match. I mean, and it did what it did, and it made an impact. And if you looked at that fight week, I was there with Mike Tyson, and everybody was there. Conor McGregor was there, Mike Tyson was there, Manny Pacquiao was there, Oscar De La Hoya. I mean, you just list Miguel Cotto, Prince Nassim. Everybody was there.
Yeah, and there was like a picture, I think, with
it was
His
massive.
Excellency
Yeah,
in the middle and
yeah.
all these tremendous fighters. Yeah.
So their impact has been amazing. And because when you have, the biggest problem with boxing is two things. It's money, and then number two, and a far number two is timing, right? So money, check. And when you have money, Shelley Finkel one time told me this, and I use it all the time. He who holds the gold holds the power. So you hold the gold, and you hold the power. This is what I want. This is when I want it. This is how I want it, and it works. Our initial initiative was to bring all of the promoters together. That was the mindset of Saudi, and that's what they've done. Is Frank Warren, Eddie Hearn never talked. Now they're you see them everywhere together, and they're promoting shows, and they're doing great things for the sport. So. Yeah, money controls it, and Saudi's got it. And Turki Al Sheikh loves boxing. He's got a passion for it. His Royal Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman loves boxing. There's a thirst for it, and you're getting these fights because of Saudi.
Do you disagree with any of that?
Well, I don't disagree with the money aspect of it. My only concern would be, and I kind of look at it as the fighter's perspective, right? What are they going to do for the fighters? Outside of the UBO coming up with, a price for 10 rounders and championship
and
fights.
let's explain that. So,
Okay.
Saudi Arabia has been involved in boxing, putting a lot of money in it, big payouts for fighters to make these fights. However, they are working now with the UFC to implement a new kind of league. Is it fair to call it that? A new boxing league. Yeah. And in order for that to work, according to some, there needs to be legislative changes at the national level. There needs to be changes to the Muhammad Ali Act. The new proposal is called the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act. And some argue this would allow the UFC and President Dana White to operate boxing more like they operate the UFC. And so then that leads into what you're talking about, the UBOs, the Unified Boxing Organizations, that would be part of this legislation. And what do you think would be the result of those?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what they're bringing to the table outside of money, paying 10 rounders, and then 10 rounders that are 5 and 10, for the number 5 to a number 10. But
are you talking about the proposed pay scale?
Yes.
Okay.
But what about are they going to invest in bringing up the young talents, or are they just going to get talents that are already established? So these are questions that have to be asked.
Your thoughts on the proposed changes?
Oh yeah, he's probably
Which they call updates. They're
Right.
not saying that they're changing it; they're updating it.
The average person doesn't understand boxing.
Yeah.
Because boxing is really two buckets. There's the sport of boxing, which we all love, and then there's the business of boxing, which we all hate. And the business of boxing controls the sport of boxing. So, biggest example is Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao. Took 7 years to make. Why? You've got the two best guys in the world. The UFC, that would never happen under that umbrella. Now, you're number 1, you're number 2, you're fighting. Number 2 is injured, you're fighting number 3.
And that should be applauded.
I love that structure.
I agree.
That structure is a phenomenal structure. Here's the problem, is boxing dates back historically so far back. It's been so broken, so fragmented, that people have evolved into accepting it for what it is. Could you imagine boxing being run as a straight lace, system-driven, systematic kind of approach? It would be absolute chaos. You're used to having, your 4 major sanctioning bodies. You're used to having your 6, 7, if you include MVP, major promoters. You're used to having all these different networks, all fighting for the same kind of stuff. The actual solution is exactly what they're proposing, which is one system, one belt, one ranking, one network, one promoter. That's what makes sense black and white. Although boxing historically hasn't been that way, what are you going to do with Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren and Oscar De La Hoya and Bob Arum? What are you going to do with them? Tell them, step aside, this is what we're doing? This initiative was great 150, 200 years ago. Today, they have a challenge. They have the funding behind them. And it's going to take them some time. And to answer your question, Stitch, I think it is going to be cultivating new talent. You're not going to bring Terence Crawford or Canelo into that system.
Well, but how many of the young guys, the 10 rounders that are there that don't really have a solid promoter, are going to want to go and join them?
At what stage in their careers, though?
Well, that's my point. I mean, how are they going to judge who they're going to bring on board, who are they going to sign? And then a point is if they sign with TKO, are they still free agents enough to go work for another promoter?
No, I think
of course
under
not.
this legislation, you have to choose between the established way or with the new proposed way. There was a report with reported purses under the UFC boxing system, $20,000 for a 10-round fight with an unranked fighter, $50,000 if you're ranked by the company from 5 to 10. One more, defending company championship, $750,000. That is so dramatically different than what boxers are currently.
But it's not.
It's not?
No, it's not.
We're just
not
talking
for,
about Canelo getting $100 million.
Again, it's not dramatically different for the non-guys, the non-superstars. So if you look at your A-list guys, the Canelos, look, even Devin Haney. Devin Haney for me is, one of the best in the world. Devin Haney doesn't command those kinds of paydays. Now, mind you, he wouldn't fight for $750,000, right? So he would be in between those guys. But those kinds of guys will always command the big purses. But when you look at some of your light heavyweight champions, some of your cruiserweight champions, some of your lower weight classes, $750,000 is not a bad payday for defending your title. Now, mind you, if it's against a big superstar guy, yeah, of course. Why does everybody want to fight Floyd Mayweather? Why does everybody want to fight Canelo? Those guys are the money guys. Those guys are the ones that command the money. But the majority of the time, those aren't bad purses to pay guys that are non-superstar status.
Okay, so the Muhammad Ali American Boxing Revival Act is what we're talking about. It has bipartisan support. A representative from Georgia who's a Republican, a representative from Kansas who is a Democrat, and she was an MMA fighter. So she says, let's do this, let's protect fighters, talks about the insurance that they will get if they are injured during the fight. I mean, that already existed,
Yes.
I thought.
Yes, it does.
Okay, but perhaps they're increasing the amount of
Which they should
money.
anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, that, I wouldn't, see, sometimes when you add things like that, it's just, it's language that a promoter has to have a surety bond, a performance bond, accidental death and dismemberment, different kinds of insurances depending on the commission in the state. So those things are already covered. Now, if you're talking about long-term medical, if you're talking about year-round medical, that's a great proposition and a great proposal to put in. But for the event itself, that's already covered.
You have Lonnie Ali, the widow of Muhammad Ali, who is in favor of it. But then you have Nico Ali Walsh, Muhammad Ali's grandson, a local here, a professional boxer, who says, as an Ali, I'm completely against altering the Muhammad Ali Act. My grandfather fought for it to protect fighters from getting screwed over. Remove it and promoters take control while fighters get paid less. Keep the act and protect the fighters who put their lives on the line. So some disagreement among family members even.
Yeah, I would go with Nico Ali because, there's so many people that have not been in the ring, have not gotten hit to experience what these guys go through that are making the laws. Nico Ali has been in the trenches. Biagio Ali, his brother, fights MMA. They've been in the trenches. They understand the hardships. They understand the families, the sacrifices that they make. So, yeah, I would go with Nico Ali's statement.
And Amer, you work with Nico Ali.
I represent Nico, and I had a conversation with Nico about that, and he was very candid. He is taking the position of defending the fighter because that's what he is. Yeah. And Stitch is accurate in that sense. That doesn't mean that you oppose. So this doesn't dissolve the Muhammad Ali Act. It allows these guys to be able to run this other organization, and then the fighter can actually choose. So nothing is being stripped from the fighter. And you can choose the traditional promoter route, or you can choose this new UBO, whatever it may be deemed, the TKO League, whatever it's going to be called, and you make a decision as to which one fits you. And Nico's position was listen, he said, my grandfather fought for this to protect the fighters from the managers, from the promoters, from anybody that's trying to exploit them from that. And that's an honorable defense in his situation. My argument to that would be, there is another avenue that fighters can choose that maybe they're not going to be on the level that that Nico is projected to be at, or some of these other guys are. So it's an alternative option, and they'll have the option to choose which one they want to take.
Well, but my point is, do they have an option, or do you, as TKO, pick who you want?
Well, of course TKO picks, and they have a great
Right.
scouting team.
Yeah.
They're scouting guys that they feel are going to be marketable, that they feel can fight their behinds off, that they feel are going to be action-packed stars, and they have a great scouting team. So they have a huge roster of guys now that they've signed that they're going to cultivate and build into what they're hoping to be is your next Conor McGregor, is your next big name in mixed martial arts.
So basically you're saying they have to prove themselves in boxing before they get invited to fight for TKO?
Well, I mean, it's just like MMA, Stitch. It's how are these guys? How are they getting recruited into the UFC? They're fighting on these club level shows, and Dana has that series where he goes out and he scouts different guys. You have to prove yourself somewhere. You're not going to be given a silver spoon. So yeah, they are going to have to prove themselves. And if you're deemed, that you qualify. Remember the Contender Series with Stallone? Look at those guys fought dog fights in the gyms and all of that. What did they want? They wanted a shot to be on that big stage.
Is this sustainable, though? Does Saudi Arabia have enough money to continue this pattern?
Does Saudi Arabia have enough money?
I would think so. I can answer that one, and I don't even know what's going on.
Yes.
Yeah.
But their purpose in getting into boxing is that they want to move away from their dependence on oil, right? That's what they've said publicly.
Well, they're not gonna make it in boxing, are they? Compared to oil?
Not with these not with 150 million to Canelo,
Wow.
but if they change the whole system and start paying less.
The country is a very wealthy country, and I would say this, and being a Muslim, being an Arab, and very proud of that, of my heritage and my lineage, that the country in itself is a beautiful country. There are stigmas out there about, and I hear all of the kind of stuff of, sport washing and this and the other thing. But the facts are, go to Saudi Arabia and see how you're treated there. Go walk in. Derek Chisora just called me beforehand. Derek Chisora would walk in the street. People would grab him to welcome him to their house as a guest. And Derek Chisora is not a good-looking guy. He's not a small guy. And they would welcome him into the house for 3 days. He's their guest. And he was like, man, I can't believe the hospitality there. The women that go there, see how they're treated there. So the country in itself, from its heritage, its religion, its culture, is a very solid country. When you say oil dependency, I mean, what do other countries rely on? So you can't really strip one to say, so we're not going to give it to this. They are wealthy. And they're putting and allocating money into things that are growing the country. And Vision 2030 is a phenomenal vision. And I hope that it turns out to be as big as they plan it is. And I think it's going to be even bigger than that.
I mean, this fight is airing on Netflix.
That's
it is
crazy.
not pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Right. But then you got tickets. Ringside tickets are what?
They're not cheap. I mean, there was a guy that was looking for tickets, and the front row was going for $75,000.
Ah!
It's insane.
It's massive. But when Floyd fought Pacquiao, those were similar prices. When Floyd fought Manny Pacquiao, we weren't alien to that. That was the #1 gate in the history of boxing. When Floyd fought Conor McGregor, that was also big. So I think it's easy to say, well, it's astronomical how much they get paid. It's astronomical how much tickets are. Floyd got paid over $200 million fighting each of the Pacquiao and Conor fights.
How much were the tickets for Mike Tyson and Jake Paul?
They weren't that
No,
big.
they weren't that big.
They weren't that big.
And this is in a football stadium, 65,000 seats. The cheapest seat is almost $500 from
no
way
kidding.
up top. Are they going to sell these tickets?
I think that right now, when you talk to different ticket brokers, tickets are flying off. I mean, there is a demand for it. There is a demand for it, and I think it is because of the stigma. This is a guy that's nasty, #1 pound for pound at 147, fighting a nasty guy, the legend at 168. What's going to happen? I think that aura in itself is what's selling, and that's what people want.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for
Thank you,
joining
Amer.
Nevada.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for watching. To find out who Amer Abdallah and Jacob Stitch Duran are picking to win the fight, watch the full interview at vegaspbs.org/Nevada Week. That is also where you will find a link to the state's cybersecurity attack recovery website. For now, I'm Amber Renee Dixon, and I'll see you next week on Nevada Week.